Welcome to Trail Tales ARP
a running podcast for every type of runner.
with Sean Soban and Russell the Runner.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another incredible episode of Trail Tales ARP with Russell the Runner. We have a world-renowned ultramarathoner with us today. It's beyond incredible to connect with Viktoria Brown, who has had a beyond phenomenal ultramarathoning journey in her life. And so welcome to the podcast, Viktoria. How are you doing?
Thank you, and thanks for those nice words. That's super kind of you. I'm good, thank you, and hello everybody.
That's good to hear. And of course, it's the truth. Your accomplishments are world renowned. They are of world-class level, and it's looking forward to discussing all of that with you. So the first question I wanted to ask you is, given how you have world records in the timed formats of 48 hours or 2 days, 72 hours or 3 days, and 6 days, can you share with us what this journey has been like for you, and some of the main lessons that you've learned along the way, and in having those records in multi-day formats?
I have a bunch of Canadian records and even a Hungarian record. The only official world record that I had was the Gomu 72-hour world record that's now been broken, but I'm aiming to get it back, of course. And there are other world records that I'm aiming for, but I'm probably not brave enough to put it out there, which ones and when. But once they happen, I can happily share that they are all multi-day records. So I do like to run for several days. And I actually just decided to take it seriously from this year. So in 2020, I ran my first ultra. I only started running after my third child was born, so I was not an athlete growing up. Nothing, absolutely nothing. They took me to one cross-country race once, and that didn't end well. And never again. But I kind of got into it after my third child was born, just for weight loss. And then I got into triathlons and marathons and Ironman and then ultra running. And now I'm here. So it kind of escalated in a relatively short period of time. And this February, I ran or competed in an ultra triathlon, which was called Ultraman Florida. I won the women's race. And after that, I decided that I will focus on running. And this has been in the making, ever since that 2020 first ultra race, where I suddenly realized that I have kind of a gift for it. Since on my first race, I broke the course record and beat all the men too. So I won overall the race. But it took me 4 years to kind of make the decision that I'm not going to be a triathlete for a little bit. Because that swimming and biking takes a lot of time away from my running, and it seems that I'm quite good at this running thing, so I might as well just do that while I can. And then once I can't break world records anymore, then I will probably go back to triathlon and Kona, the Ironman World Championship, which I really, really enjoy.
That's all amazing. I've read your website, and it was my understanding that you had I thought your website says that you have the world record for 48 hour, 72 hours, and 6 days, but so it's only the 48 hours, in which my understanding is you ran 405 kilometers over a span of 48 hours.
Record and the Hungarian record, and it is actually as a Canadian record, it's higher than the men's Canadian record. But it is not the world record. The world record is actually 30 kilometers more, so 435 kilometers. But the way this race went, I was on world record pace up to 38, and I kind of made a mistake. And so it went downhill from there. But now I know that, you know, I can do it. If I could do it up to 38 hours, I can finish it off and do the last 10 hours as well. So I'll probably try next year again. But no, it was the 72-hour world record that I held for. I broke it several times, actually, the 72-hour world record. And then it was taken away from me last year, I believe.
Okay, and it's beyond phenomenal that you came within 30 kilometers of the 48-hour world record, in which I'm an accountant and I can do the math on that quickly. I mean, you only missed the world record by 0.67 kilometers per hour over the span of 48 hours, which is incredibly thin margins, right? Like that's only about a lap and a half around a track per hour. So, I mean, that shows how close you were, and the fact that you were on pace throughout 38 hours, and then it sounds like there was a nutrition mistake, right?
I was indeed very close, and unfortunately, like the way it ended up, it just the last 10 hours I could just walk and not make much progress. But if I could run the last 10 hours, then it could, yeah, I think I could do it. So next time.
Obviously, you would know that best, Victoria, given, yeah, you were right there and you were on pace, which is beyond phenomenal. I mean, it's like, it's a hard pace. I mean, you ran 405 kilometers over 48 hours. And I mean, breaking that down, that's 101 kilometers every 12 hours, 4 consecutive times, which that's about 8.5 kilometers per hour. I was doing the math on all this. Essentially, you ran 7-minute kilometers for 48 straight hours.
Yeah.
Which is incredible.
That was pretty much the cutoff that I was thinking, that it is possible to run under 7-minute pace for the whole time. So that was my goal, and I think that is very doable. So I was doing much better than that, obviously, up until 38 hours, because even with walking the last 10 hours, it was under that kind of pace. So yeah, now I'm thinking, you know, it's possible to run it at an average of 6:30 maybe, or better. But it's, to me, like my kind of pace, I feel that I should be able to keep a 7-minute pace at any point, not just in a 48-hour race, but in a 72 and in a 6-day as well.
I mean, it's interesting comparing the 48-hour to the 72-hour. I mean, obviously with the 72-hour, the sleep deprivation would become so much more apparent.
Well,
can you, what was your mileage for 72 hours when you had the world record? It's been broken, but you could break it again.
So it wasn't that great in retrospect. It just, at the time, it wasn't that well contested, that distance. So it was 471 kilometers. So if you think about it, that I can do 405, or I think I could have done, you know, 420, 430, realistically in 48 hours, that 471 is not that great. But the problem is exactly what you said, that in a 72-hour, you have no choice, you have to sleep. Like you can't go 72 hours with absolutely zero sleep. Why 48 hours I did, and I plan to next time as well. So 48 hours you can go through with zero sleep and move at under 7-minute pace. So it's a question of, you know, how much time are you going to take to sleep, and and at what point. So those are still questions I'm trying to figure out for the 72-hour, but there will be next year, there will be a world championship for 72-hour. So that's going to be the race to do it. Hopefully it goes well and I don't make mistakes like I did this time. But I'm learning a lot about these multi-day races. So obviously now when I did the 405 kilometers in 2 days, I already know much more than 3 years ago when I ran 471 in 3 days. So you can see the huge difference, and I haven't run a pure 72 hours since. So it's gonna be interesting how much better I can do next year when that time comes. But even as a 6-day split, I should be able to do much better than that 471 now, because I know that much more.
Absolutely. That all makes perfect sense. Obviously, you've been competing in these multi-day events for such a good amount of time. So I mean, obviously you've learned a tremendous amount. And I mean, I'm thinking about the sleep as well across the 72-hour format. I mean, you have to be in tune with yourself so incredibly well to know when are the best times for you to sleep individualistically, and also how can you, of course, maximize efficiency. I mean, on the basis of you can go 48 hours without any sleep, but I mean, in the 72-hour, I would think that you probably want to get at least an hour or two of sleep in those first couple of days in order to be stronger on the third and final day, right?
Well, you can still sleep on the third day if you need to. So my current thinking, although I really don't know, and I don't feel that I have the 72-hour figured out. I feel that I have the 48-hour figured out. It was just, and up to 38 hours, my execution was actually on point, as we saw, because, I was leading the race, which was the world championship for 48 hours. And, I was on world record pace, but so I think I do have the 48-hour figured out in terms of how to do this right. I just need to execute it better next time. For the 72, I don't feel the same. I don't know if I have the formula. I would sleep before the 48-hour mark, definitely.
Yeah.
So I would. So my current thinking is that I might be able to get away to just sleep halfway, at 36. But again, I might not. So that would, the way I would play it is probably go to 36, sleep, get up, and see if I need another sleep the following, so the last night. And if I do, then take it. If I feel I can push through, then just go through.
That I like your strategy with that in terms of sleeping halfway. That's a good moderate approach from my perspective, but of course I haven't competed in these multi-day events like you have. But yeah, I mean, certainly you've got the 48-hour figured out because you came within 30 kilometers of world record, and that's beyond phenomenal. And yes, you would have been much closer, and I do believe, I believe you would have broken it if not for that. Just we learn in life, right?
Yeah, it's
And
just a stupid mistake. I got greedy, so
these things happen so easily, right? And
it's just a caffeine overdose, probably. So that's the conclusion we came to. So
that makes sense.
yeah, it once you are derailed, it's one could argue that 10 hours is enough to get back on track, but once you are depleted of energy and everything, it's very hard to do that. Yeah, but yeah, next time.
For sure. And I mean, of course, you're pushing your body to such incredible limits, which makes it even far more difficult. You've been running for 38 hours, so of course, you know, that comes into play hugely, of course.
Yeah, I feel that's what happened. So once, you know, I started throwing up and everything was coming out of me, it's kind of my mind was working so hard up to those 38 hours to keep it together that okay, yes, you know, throwing up is not great. And after that, because my body wouldn't take the fuel, I just got completely empty and I had no energy. But at that point, your mind is just not on board anymore, right? It's just looking for excuses why it can pull the plug. And I think that's what happened, that, you know, 10 hours would have been plenty enough to turn it around. Except, you know, your mind got the excuse that it needed to completely shut down. So I think that's what happened.
Yeah, and then there's no denying that it's just going to happen. Of course, it's
Yeah.
just the inherent nature of the situation. So as much as these timed events are fascinating over a multi-day format, I wanna jump on over to, and I know you're excited because I know you love this, to talk about the backyard ultramarathon format, in which, you know, you've been hugely successful in that format as well. But I actually haven't figured out, but so before we get into all of this, for everyone who doesn't know, actually, Victoria, how about you explain how the backyard ultramarathon works?
So yeah, I love the format. You were right, and it is super simple. That's kind of one of the draws. You have to run 6.71 kilometers every hour on the hour. So that's 4.667 miles every hour on the hour. And the reason behind that number is that it will give you 100 miles per day. So after 24 hours, you've run 100 miles under 24 hours. And the rest of the hour is yours to spend whatever you want to do. And then you need to be on the start line for the next loop or lap or backyard or yard. This year, I just got the email today, actually, that I made it to Team Canada, which is what I wanted to do. So in 2020, it was invitation only when the first satellite championship happened, where every country runs their own championship with their 15 best runner, male and female, together. And then by 2022, there was a qualification system for these championships, and I qualified, but I chose the Ironman World Championship in Kona instead, which I was already registered for. So I couldn't do them both because they were a week apart. And but in 2024, this year, I was determined to take my slot on the team. So I qualified for the team, and I'm going to participate. And it looks amazing what they sent out. It's just, they're gonna treat us like princesses and queens and princes and kings and all that.
It's beyond incredible. Yeah. The backyard ultramarathon format's always fascinated me.
Cool.
I've yet to do one. What is your what's your distance PR in the backyard ultramarathon format? I know, of course, it's multiple days. I hadn't asked your how many hours in a row you made it.
So the best I've done is 49 hours. That's what qualified me for the team. So 2 days plus an hour. And the reason behind that is exactly because I knew that was going to be enough to qualify for the team. So it's a last man standing event. So that's 204 miles, 326 kilometers, 27. And I went to that race specifically with the goal of qualifying for the team. And these races are last man standing. So everybody can run until there is just one person, and then one person can run one more loop. And then the event is over. So our Canadian championship here will only last until the second last Canadian standing. and then the winner can do one extra loop. But in each country, their own championship can keep going. And then the team results, like every loop of all the team members is added up. And that's the countries against each other. So there are actually 3 different championships going at the same time. There is the Canadian Championship, the World Championship for whoever is the last person standing in the longest going event. But then there is a team championship as well, which is the different nations against each other. So it's quite a complicated thing after all, but the concept is relatively simple.
For sure, in which I want to give a shout out to my good close friend Justin Wright, who obviously you must know, Victoria. The Persistence Backyard Ultra happened this past weekend.
So I brought him the cheeseburger, so I picked some there.
That's great. Yeah, I know Justin from the FAR community, which is my 105-mile journey. And yeah, Justin's a great gent and a hugely talented ultra runner. He's also finished the Cocodona 250, which shout out to Brian Bondi. I know that you so I know we're skipping a bit here, but I know you were pacing Brian Bondi on his Cocodona 250-mile experience, right?
Yeah.
It's amazing how all of this just ends up interconnected, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was also a very fun event.
For sure. And so you and Justin will be at the of course the Team Canada Championships in October. And that's in New Brunswick, right?
Right. Yeah. So So 15 of us are going to get together. It looks like there will be 3 women on the team, which is awesome. I think that's a big achievement.
It is, absolutely. And yeah, one of the things I wanted to ask, obviously you're an incredible leader for women in ultramarathon. And actually you remind me a lot of Courtney Dauwalter.
Oh.
I think you're the Canadian Courtney Dauwalter. That's my opinion.
I wear the shorts, and I'm also on the girls not she's on. I'm also on the Injinji team, which she is on. So I'll take that.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I wear Injinji socks too. I think they're amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I mean, obviously, I know that you're always advocating for women very strongly, and I admire that about you to the maximum, Victoria. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts about women in ultramarathoning and how the future is looking for women specifically.
Yeah, I really like it that the women's field is amazing lately, very, very strong. And we all seem to put up performances that we maybe didn't really think were possible. So even in this World Championship, Steen Rex ran the furthest any woman has ever run in 48 hours. And the second place girl, Irina Masanova, she came within a kilometer of that. And then I came third with the 6th all-time best performance in 48 hours running. But again, in the other timed races as well, it seems like the competition is getting stronger and stronger for women, as well as men. But I'm more excited for the women, to be honest. And I do really like that women and men are competing together against each other in backyards. And I do feel that women can win, and they do sometimes, not as many times as men, but we can beat them. And I have won races. As I just mentioned, my first ever ultra run, I beat all of the men, but there were a few others where I came over a winner. There are a few things that I would like differently regarding the individual championship, because I don't feel that women get enough of a spotlight there. But I think it might eventually change a little bit, and I'm hopeful. I'm trying to influence that a little bit in the background. We'll see if it gets any kind of traction. But I would really like to see, to be honest, a women-only championship as well as the overall championship that's taking place in Tennessee every second year.
That's quite the perspective. Obviously, that's it's quite interesting. So I mean, you would, I mean, obviously right now with Lazarus Lake's World Championship, the Big Dog Backyard Ultra, you would prefer a women only version as well? I'm just trying to clarify that.
I would love to see that. Yeah. So like, it seems like there are only 75 people are allowed on the individual championship, and I think last time there were 4 women total. So I can't see why there couldn't be another championship that are women only, to give 20, 30, 40 women a chance to run on that course, and not to take away from those 4 who actually made it to the overall championship, although I don't know how many will be able to make it for next year, because the field is just so strong that the current women's world record is actually not enough to get into that championship. So the only way for women to get in is to win their own country's race, which is possible. Like, that is absolutely possible and doable, but it's not very common. So if there are 73 men and 2 women, I just feel like that maybe women could get their own show, and that people would like to see that too, and not to change anything with what is there already, but just to add to it a little bit.
Absolutely.
And
I hadn't realized that it was, I did know that there was only a select amount of runners, obviously representing all the countries in the world. I didn't know it was 75 exactly, but of course it's not many. Yeah, 75, that makes sense. About 75 countries, right? 1 representative from each. I hadn't realized that there was only 4 females at the World Championship last year, which is, now that you're sharing that with me, that's incredibly problematic. But I mean, what how that works is, and how you're describing it so well, it makes sense that I mean, it would be it is difficult for a woman to win their own country, right? It's not, because there's so many men competing in backyard ultras statistically, right?
Yeah, and one of those 4 was the last place, so 75th, who got in was a woman actually. So that's why there were 4. But yeah, I think it's possible. All 3 of us are going to shoot for the win in Canada. I know that, because as far as I know, Ihor is actually injured. So it's going to be a much more open race than if he was here, who is actually second in the world all time. So if he is indeed not coming, then any of the 3 women could do it. So it's going to be possible, but it's very unlikely, and even if 1 or 2 women do it, it's a very small percentage of the field, and I feel that women can put on a show just as well as men can. So why not give them their own?
Of course, and I couldn't agree more with that, obviously, based on these statistics that we're discussing now. I would wholeheartedly agree that women should have their own world championship, especially considering that's only 5-6% representation women on the world stage, which again is incredibly problematic, and just not the way it should be. But obviously, with the way the format is, that's just how it's ending up. But that's why, I agree, there should be a women's only world championship. With that said, it's exciting that 3 of you will be competing out of 15. That's for Team Canada. And I mean, you have an amazing chance at being the last human standing there in October to represent Canada.
Yeah, there are actually a number of other countries that have 3 women, so that is not that uncommon. So yeah, I'm excited for that. But I agree, like Lars said previously, and I can see his point, that how would you take a place from a man who qualified, if it's the 75 best in the world? It's not fair to take away, 70th man and give that to a woman. So that's why I feel that, throwing another event in the mix would probably be, and it would just be like, that's just my suggestion. Like, I don't know, it's Laz's event, right? He does whatever he feels is the right thing to do. But I just feel that, that wouldn't compromise the integrity of the current world championship. It would just add something else, something great for women, and that would be really, really cool. So, and I would leave like everything else intact, I would leave all the races as is, women against men, because as long as you're not at the top of the top, like the best men in the world and the best women in the world, this problem, it doesn't really exist on a local level, or even on a country level. So that's just my feeling. That's just my suggestion. It's just something that I thought I would put out there and see if it gets any traction. Again, I have zero influence on what he's gonna do, but I think it's a good idea.
It's an amazing idea from my perspective. It's, it creates an additional platform to showcase women and their talents in the backyard ultra format, in ultra marathoning, of course, which is incredibly important. Women should be celebrated, and there are so many incredible, talented, enduring female ultra marathoners out there. Obviously, you're one amazing example of that, Viktoria, and I'm happy that you're advocating for that. Obviously, it would take a huge amount of work, and there would need to be more backyard ultra marathon events. I mean, I suppose there would need to be backyard ultra marathon events around the world for females specifically, right?
Oh, no, I don't agree with that.
No? Okay, well then how would the structure of that look, though?
We can just qualify on any backyard ultra that is out there, and then you would take, from the last 2 years, the same as it takes for the world championship. You would take the best results from the last 2 years and make a reasonable cut wherever you feel this is a world-class performance. Make that 24, 48, whatever that cut would be. It doesn't have to be 75. There might not be 75 women in the world who went beyond 24 hours. I really don't know the statistics. I know that my 49 is in the top 10 all time for women. So, there are not that many who go that far. So the cutoff would need to be a bit lower than that. 20, 30, whatever, we can consider that, okay, this is a qualification that is worth having. You know what I mean?
That makes sense in hindsight. I can see what you mean now. It doesn't require additional events. It can just be females at a certain level performance. It could be, for example, 30 hours, then they could qualify for and be additional participants at the current world stage. That's what you're saying, right?
That would qualify them for the women's world championship.
That makes sense. And that would be amazing. Now, I was just wrapping my head around how that would work, and that would be amazing. Like, maybe you should write a letter to Lazarus Lake advocating for that.
It's funny. Yeah, I didn't mean it as a big announcement, but yeah,
it is big though.
It is big, because as I said, since February I've only been running, so I decided to dedicate myself more to this sport. And as of August 1st, I'm actually a professional athlete. So I signed a sponsorship deal with a company called Mount to Coast. I don't know if you can see it very well.
I can
So
see it well. I'm sure everyone else can. Mount to Coast.
Mount to Coast, and they make great shoes, and I really love their shoes, and they are suited specifically for multi-day running. So my plan is to run in those for the 6-day World Championship, which is in a month, and then I'm gonna run in their shoes in October for the backyard as well, and hopefully that will go take me very, very far.
Well, obviously an incredible brand supporting you, and yeah, that's congratulations on this professional sponsorship and becoming an official pro athlete. It's about time. You're
Yeah,
a
right.
class athlete, so it's long overdue, and then that's amazing news. By the way, I didn't realize that the 6-day the 6-day format's coming up for you next month.
Yeah, it is, and
Wow.
that's my big race for the year. So actually, the 48-hour was the warm up.
That's a third,
Right? Yes,
that was the training run.
It's the easy part. It's the easy part of the 6-day, the first two.
Yeah.
But yeah, the what I got super lucky with that the Mount to Coast shoes are specifically made for road running for several days. So they are super comfy for these very long distances. So I'm quite excited to see, if I have a similar breakthrough in the 6th day that like what I did for the 48-hour, and if I can take that then and apply it to the backyard format, which is again a completely different game.
Absolutely. That's incredibly exciting. I do want to ask you one other question is what is your distance PR in the 6-day format?
So that's the current Canadian record. It's again only 747 kilometers. So I believe that is like 460 miles or thereabouts. I do kilometers, so it's very hard for me to think in terms of miles, but it's something like that. So it's again, it's not that much if you consider what I'm aiming for.
I just did the math. That's 465 miles in 6 days, which is a daily average of 78 miles per day.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. It's not that great.
No, yeah, but you're needing to sleep a good amount. It's 1 day short of a week.
Yeah, the problem when I achieved that, what happened there was that on day 5 I got a food poisoning.
Oh.
So I was out that day for 12 hours, and it was very questionable if I can come back for day 6. So I took half the day off. I slept. So first we tried, I took an hour off. It didn't help. Another hour off. It didn't help. And then I just went down for 10 hours to see if I can fully reset my whole body. And actually it helped a lot. So I went back on the course, starting with slow walking and so on. And on day 6, I actually ended up doing 151 kilometers, which was, what is that,
94 miles.
94 miles? Yeah, 94 miles. So the last day went pretty well. And but day 5 was the one that put me out of contention for any kind of records other than the Canadian record, which I did break, the Canadian women's record. But I hope to do better when I don't get the food poisoning on day 5.
I mean, I'm completely blown away. You ran 94 miles the day after suffering food poisoning
And that was a lot
on the final day of a 6-day endurance challenge. I've never heard of anything like that in my life. How did your body return to be able to do that the next day?
It was tough. So part of the success story there is that there was a lot of walking still on day 6. So that 94 miles was achieved with a lot of walking, especially because it was also hot. So I couldn't really push my body when it was just coming back. But I had a crew member who was absolutely incredible. I'm trying to convince her to join me this time too. She's a medical doctor, but she has a bunch of other degrees, like in nutrition, in coaching. Like, I don't know how many degrees she's got. Like, I'm thinking like 5, 6, 7, something like that. Anything she's interested in, she goes to university and gets a degree. So, so she had such an incredible and deep knowledge of, first off, the food poisoning that I had, second of the nutrition that was needed to try to bring me back, and then add her coaching degree to that, so that, you know, she was able to coach me to it on top of just, you know, giving me the food needed. And basically, by the end of the whole story, we were able to achieve my body to even take gels when needed. So obviously I had to put up some good paces towards the end of the race to get 94 miles by the end of it. And the other story was there that I was in second place when I came back. So when I went down, I was first female, but when I came back, I was in second place in the race. And obviously I wanted to win. So we knew that at one point I need to speed it up if I want to achieve that. And also the Canadian record wasn't that far. So the plan was to pick up the pace for the last few hours, meaning like 6, 7, 8, 10. So to be able to do that, and for those kind of paces, I obviously needed to get to a point where my body would take the engineered sports food. And yes, through some magic, she actually achieved that. So that was absolutely incredible, how she brought me back from the dead, basically. So her name is Kristina Drabik, and I'm super grateful for what she did in that race.
Well, I'm the most grateful that you had Christina in your corner to support you in reaching that Canadian female record. That is beyond incredible. And obviously all of her degrees and her incredible amount of knowledge as a doctor came in incredibly useful for you. That's beyond amazing. And just how, I mean, doing the math on that, 94 miles in 24 hours is just shy of a 4-mile-per-hour pace, which it's like you're a strong walker. I know that. And that's why a lot of that would have been walking. That makes sense. It's beyond amazing how you had a 78-mile average daily pace across the 6 days, but then the first day you had a plus 16-mile of your, average throughout the 6-day endurance challenge. That's amazing. It's fascinating to me from a numbers standpoint, and especially from a qualitative standpoint of how you bounce back from, food poisoning. That's incredible. Viktoria, like normally we try to keep our podcast 35 to 40 minutes, but you're such an amazing journey that I think we've made it about an hour. So I hope our audience listens to every second of this, because Viktoria, you're amazing. And you inspire me to no end. Thank you for
I appreciate that.
For sure. Thank you for this conversation tonight.
Thank you for having me. It was great to talk to you.
It's amazing. And so we like to end the podcast with, again, a phrase, and it's 2 words, and maybe repeat after me. Run wild.
Run wild.
Stop it up, don't stop.
And that's a wrap on this episode of Trail Tales ARP, a running podcast from Sean Sobon and Russell the Runner. Thank you very much for listening. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at trail_tales_ARP. Check out our YouTube channel at Trail Tales ARP, and you can catch us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Please don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. Catch you next time. Run wild.
No, I'm never turning back. I won't stop, I'ma fight until there's nothing left. It's so what? You're gonna be hurting bad, cause I've been to hell and back. You don't wanna make me mad. I stay strong, you will never see me crack. And if you get in my way, you gonna feel the wrath. Gotta say it to my face while he's looking back. Mirror breaks after math. When I hate, I attack. I'm immortal. When I feel like this, I'm immortal.